Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Janine Between the Lines. Today's episode is going to be the second episode of the We the Animals by Justin Torres series. It's going to be regarding chapters 7 through 13. So I know that they don't have numbers on them, but it'll be the chapter Lena up until the chapter Ducks. And it will be featuring my special guest that I spoke about last episode, Miss Roxanne Lim at Renaissance Roxy. She is a woman of many titles. If you didn't listen in the last episode, some of the titles to simply skim the surface include creative director, founder and creator of her self-published magazine, Mosaic Minds. She is a lady hip-hop hound dog with extremely diverse musical roots, and pretty much she's just everything. She's everything I want and need, and I'm more than honored and privileged to call her one of my closest friends, and of course, guest on my podcast. So, if you aren't already, go ahead and click that star to favorite Janine Between the Lines on Anchor, or you could follow me on Twitter. I would love if you did both. My Twitter handle is at JanineBTL, and also follow at Renaissance Roxy. I'll definitely have all our contacts, linked on Twitter, LinkedIn pin for this whole week. So she is a great person to keep on your list. That TL will never be dry. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode and stay tuned. Also, two small disclaimers before we get into the episode. Roxanne and I were having a few technical difficulties when it came to the audio of this episode, but I really didn't want to sacrifice the content, again, just like my OTT before. So just want to let you guys know that this episode is best listened to with some type of headphones. Second disclaimer, some of the material spoken about in this episode could be emotionally triggering. It's relating to specific instances of trauma in Roxanne's life. So just wanted to give you guys a warning or heads up just in case there's anyone out there who has any sensitivities to emotional or stories of abuse and things of that nature. So, again, hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks, guys. Just to give all of our listeners a preface, I just wanted to tell them that both of us woke up this morning. And the first thing, so we plan to do this around 10 a.m. sharp because Miss Busy over here, she only gave me an hour allotment. So her time is very, we only have such an amount of time to hash this episode out. But the first thing I told her, I was like, good morning. I'm awake now, but I have to cook rice. I have to saing and then make coffee. And then meanwhile, Roxanne wakes up late and she goes, oh, good morning. I'm running a little late, but I have to cook some Spam first.
Priorities.
You can take the Asian out of the Lolo and Lola's Rally Creek Filipino house. You can't take the rice cooker or the Spam out of the Asian. I really can't with you. But we're here.
Hi, we are here. I'm so excited.
I gave you, I can't wait till you hear the sleepy introduction that I did, because it was, right in the middle of me making my coffee, and it sounds super low energy, but now I'm excited.
You know what's funny? I actually just forgot to mention, too, to add on to your Asian thing. I'm trying not to drink coffee so much because it was, increasing my anxiety. So now I drink matcha in the morning. I actually boil it and whisk it.
Are you kidding?
Like a real Asian.
You have a bamboo pouring device?
I do. I have one of those.
Do you sit crisscross and just sit on the floor like while you drink it? And just close your eyes and it just pours itself into your oak mug?
Unfortunately, I would not be able to reach the counter if I sat on the floor, so no, it doesn't work that way, but a good visual.
Oh, God. I can already see where... this feels like... I kind of wish I could Skype you at the same time. But, that's okay. I'm getting carried away. So, I have... You know what? We're not going to do this. We're going to pick. I promise.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And also, just for everyone else, we each have, families on the weekend. We like to... Ooh. You have ASMR, water pouring too.
It's not okay. It sounds like a waterfall or like a prop or something, but it's honestly just my sink leaking.
But you just have diarrhea?
No. How could I have that? I don't hydrate enough.
Oh no.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay, let's everyone. You have to give it applause. You have to rate how our ASMR sounds are. Here's my coffee sip. That wasn't that therapeutic because I almost choked. God. Okay, Roxanne. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what the crowds came for. So before everything, I gave you a mini introduction. The one thing that I didn't tell them, that I didn't add, was quote unquote independent media artist. But I wanted to ask you one thing just so that people could know you even better. And before we get into the book, I just want to know, okay? I tweeted this on my personal pretty long ago. Not that long ago. But I said, I find it so intriguing when I ask people what are 3 or 4 things that they would put in my thought circle to communicate with me if they were trying to reach me over a different medium, if my soul was gone and I passed away. So for me, mine, what John and Jess said, they were like, oh, we put a glass of wine, your glasses, a book, and probably some of Archie's hair. Basically, what are some tangible material things that define who you are? What would people put in your salt circle? Think of what I would put in yours.
Okay, so just to clarify the question, am I putting things in your salt circle or what I would have in mine?
Yeah, what your friends would say would be in yours.
Okay, well, I think it depends on the friend, to be honest.
Oh. Okay, me.
What would Janine put in my salt circle? Let's see. The first one would be... The first thing you would put in my salt circle, you, Janine, would put in my Roxanne's salt circle would be coffee from Gate. The second thing would be a CD player. And the third thing would probably be a pineapple.
Duh. Why?
A pineapple.
That?
Yeah, because, you really, enabled my obsession with pineapples throughout high school. And
Rick Ross,
now,
listening?
Yeah. Sponsor us. Not an ad.
Hashtag ad. Hashtag sponsored. I wish one day, one freaking day, on my notepad, I literally wrote hashtag the meat and potatoes. Roxanne only has an hour, so let's get into the nitty gritty. How freaking weird am I?
It's okay. I can bend a little bit because I was late.
Oh yeah. Go tell your subordinates that you need just a little more time. Just a little.
Subordinates.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm gonna link you to the next recording that I'm doing when they're finally live, and I'm gonna tell them that you called them subordinates, and then you're gonna have the wrath. You're gonna have the wrath of the bisexual plight on you, because
I'm glad you're talking about this. That literally perfect perfectly leads into like one of my favorite parts. But you tell me one of your favorite parts first. Okay. Also, listeners, just to give you another preface, she read the whole book last night and she slept at 4 a.m. I'm just outing you just because, but you can't talk about past the duck stuff, okay?
Okay. I'll try really hard.
Give me one favorite part and then I'll tell you mine.
Okay, so my favorite part within chapters 7 to 13, because that's my range, my favorite part was, oh my gosh, it was, can I just like say a general thing first and then like specify?
Oh, of course. This podcast is your oyster. We're just living in it.
Okay.
Okay.
You know I like to eat oysters, right?
Oh yeah, yum. They're an aphrodisiac. Okay, keep going.
Exactly. So in general, I like that the novel is written, it's like in collective first person. So like you're like inserted into this narrative, like you're part of the group, like you're one of the boys, literally. But it's also like, it's written in the mindset of a child approaching very adult themes. And I really like that because it's like, it do that well. It's hard to execute that really well. Because it's hard to do that really well because, you know, a lot of people just, they don't know how to explain those things to a child, let alone explain it to themselves, like, or understand it when they're older.
Yeah.
So like, it's really taboo themes from the eyes of a child as a writer is like really, you have to have skill.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot.
And I don't think just
props
as a child. So to be able to insert him like in that position, he must have had like a freaking like his own personal like corner where he just like delves within himself to like find the words for it. And I think that really reflects what you just said. Like he really put himself in that freaking mindset. And he became one with the character. But that makes me think, do you think he's the character? Is that him?
I feel like it is. Just because I don't know, I can't really like foresee writing about these like really personal, intimate experiences without having some form of attachment or like real memory to it. I mean, I feel like this is like slightly a tangent, but not really. Like Junot Diaz, for example. I don't know if you ever read Junot Diaz.
Have I? I don't think I have. It doesn't strike a super memorable chord. I might have heard about it.
I have like a love-hate relationship with that writer because he is a brilliant writer, really great, like poetry and prose, like very like tinged with like pain and like intimacy and lots of sexual themes. But it's also come to light this year that it's because he's like harassed women and like he's been misogynistic and stuff. But when you read his writing, he's actually the victim. He's the person that suffered trauma and like was raped and stuff like that. And it's like really powerful to like see that duality between like his writing and how he like portrays himself and how he is as an actual person. And a lot of people, they just focus on one of those identities, but they don't realize that you kind of need both to understand the whole. And I kind of feel like in the sense of We the Animals, it's the same, where like maybe some of it is fictional, maybe it's made up scenarios, but they have roots in realistic memories.
Oh, dang. I might need to look that up.
Right. I mean, I could just send you my copy since I'm not reading it anymore. I've read it like 3 times.
Wow. Put that in the mail. Okay, tell me about your favorite part too.
Okay, so Talk to Me is one of my favorites within this range because, you know, the boys are imitating a conversation on the phone between their mom and dad.
Oh crap!
Yeah, and it's like, it starts out like really innocent. They're like, you know, making small talk and everything, and it's funny. And they keep like, they pretend to like hang up, and then they laugh and stuff. But then towards the end, it starts becoming them projecting their fantasies of what they think like a good marriage looks like. I think that's like really powerful, because the section, I think it's page 42 in my book, where, you know, the narrator goes, hello, and then his brother Joel says, I got a job.
Oh.
And then they're celebrating like, oh, you got a job? And then he's like, yeah, baby, everything's going to be real fine from now on, just real fine. And then they hang up, and then they call back again, and they start apologizing to each other. And they're like, I'm sorry. No, baby, I'm sorry. And then at the end, it ends with, is it just going to be like this forever? No, it's not going to be like this forever. So what are we going to do? Well, we'll do whatever it takes, I guess. And then they ask, what does it take? Yeah. And he says, I'm not sure yet. And then I love that Justin writes, he stretched the cord like a bow and arrow and then let it fly. It's kind of like a very symbolic, like you're throwing. I'm a very strong believer in energy and like the manifestation of energy. So I don't really believe that like any energy can be put out into the world and like destroyed. I think it just manifests in different forms. You know, like if you have good energy, it'll manifest, and vice versa, you know, with things that are bad. So when Justin Torres wrote, he stretched the cord like a bow and arrow, then let it fly, I was like, wow, that's like so powerful for such a simple concept of like these boys talking on the phone and creating a fantasy of what, you know, they want their parents' marriage to look like, because it's like they're throwing their hopes into the world that like maybe one day their family unit will actually be a cohesive family unit. Like they could one day have a normal life, and this is how they entertain themselves and escape the reality of like what it's really like. So I thought that was really, really powerful. And then the Night Watch chapter, I really just like the Night Watch chapter because most of the book, like you are met with Paps as like a character that's very stereotypical, you know, hard, unemotional, you know, father, abusive, you know, husband. And then in this chapter, you see that like his struggle. You see his struggle, his pain. You see that he is really trying to work hard to provide for his family, but he's a broken man. Okay, so to rewind a little bit, the Night Watch is really powerful to me because you see, normally in other chapters, Paps being a really terrible father, abusive father and husband, and just like very emotionally unavailable and stoic and just terrible at a lot of things. And then in the Night Watch chapter, you see that he actually cares about his family and that he really tries to provide. But I think this has a lot of context for culture, you know, and how in a lot of family units that come from minority backgrounds, you know, the father or the man of the family has to be this breadwinner. Like just traditionally, that's what's expected. And the woman is more of like the nurturing figure that takes care of the children and, you know, makes food and is there for comfort, but not necessarily to provide anything. And like in this chapter, you kind of see him at this breaking point where like he's approached by a coworker who I'm assuming, but correct me if I'm wrong, is white and not a person of color. Yeah. And that plays a lot into like into the cultural differences, right? Like a lot of people don't necessarily understand the immigrant plight, right? Where like you come to this country to provide for your family, and then like you still have to work like a really, really hard labor or low end job that nobody wants, but you have to do it because you don't have the qualifications to do much else. And I think that's very powerful because he's at this point, you know, he's letting the kids sleep at his work because there's no one to watch them. And that was my favorite part, my second favorite part, I guess, because I like stories that show a different side to what you already know. You know, I like stories that don't just stick to like a static character. It's like, all right, this is how maybe they are like this most of the time. This is how their nature is. But here's a moment where they were different. Here's a moment where they showed a little bit of human, a little bit of vulnerability, you know? So I liked how Justin Torres wrote this chapter. I thought it was really well put.
Yeah, and then you feel...
And then
it makes you have to reassess how you're feeling. Like, oh, man, like, I didn't want to feel bad for him. But then you kind of, like, have to get yourself together because... First of all, you're only getting this one picture, but then when he paints it even more, you feel bad about judging him, like, the whole time. That's how I felt when I read it, too. And that was in my notes, like, when we get to the next part, I'll explain it. But you know it's crazy, Roxanne? Like, I think it's kind of weird that you pick those two chapters, like, of all of them, too, because, precisely the end part of Talk to Me, it's like they're having the conversation and then he goes, what do you mean, what are we going to do? It's just going to be like this forever. And then oh baby, it's not going to be like this forever. And then the end of the Night Watch chapter, it's like the Paps is like, we're never going to escape this, never. And then the mom is like, don't you dare. And I got chills when I freaking read that because I was like, this is the first time. It's kind of like Talk to Me was like a foreshadowing the end of Night Watch. Like, it's weird how they both like tied in like that. And
yeah, no, I definitely
didn't
agree.
it weirdly like give you hope? Like, I don't know. And then I don't know how I felt, and I was like, yeah, it kind of really just highlighted that vulnerability that you said. Like, he is broken, and how do you like recover from that? Okay, so this next portion that I had to cut out, it began with me talking about one of my favorite parts, and one of those parts including the chapter Lena in general. So I posed a question to Roxanne asking if she thought that Ma was bisexual or a lesbian just because of the interaction that Justin Torres painted out for us. So that was part of the question. I also, we got to the conversation of how Ma kind of found her escape at the brewery, even if it was grueling work, and how, as I was reading, I didn't find it surprising that she found a figure like Lena in that setting. Going on, we were talking about how it seems it's become kind of normal that not only men, but women as well, and society as a whole has just kind of started to fetishize women being in relationships with other women. And I mean, that kind of in terms of publicity, there were two instances in my experience that kind of solidified. So you know how feminism for me in my Little Women episode, it was the Free the Nipple movement that kind of solidified it in my head. So my moments in like recent history that have kind of shown me this fetishization of, like lesbian relationships is one, when Kalani came out, I just thought that there was a huge cascade of women in the media that felt more comfortable or made it known to everyone else that, they were interested in women or did start to have relationships with women. And the next instance isn't a defining instance, but I thought it was kind of relevant to what Roxanne and I were speaking on. So there's this YouTube group. I wonder if you guys know them. Their name's Sorority. And there's one sister that broke away from the group. Her name is Zinye. And I asked Roxanne if she would find this offensive. So basically, she was tweeting that on the daily, beautiful women are always calling her beautiful and gassing her up. And one of her comments stated something along the lines of, oh, like, maybe if all these women, like, keep talking to me this way, keep sweet talking me, I might just turn gay. I might just start liking women. Because according to her, men couldn't and wouldn't give her what she wanted and needed and stuff, and wasn't able to fill the shoes or fulfill what she needed in a relationship. So I posed a question to Roxanne, asking if she thought that was possible, like identifying as a straight woman and then just being able to say, hey, I think I'm gonna try to start liking girls now. So that was the first part of it. And then second part had to do with the term or generalization, quotation gesture, quote unquote, men are trash. Like, is that okay? Just because we see it in our society now more than ever. And also, when I mentioned it in my Little Women episode, I was talking about, radical and pretty much almost inappropriate feminism. And is the statement, or is saying men are trash, acceptable? Just because of how normalized it is at this time.
I don't think that the mom is lesbian. Like, I don't think she identifies as that, but I do think that, like, there are points in some people's lives where they aren't getting the love they need from the model that they're following, and it's different for everybody. Obviously, it's very subjective, but I think this chapter says a lot about the type of love we seek from other people. Yeah. It doesn't really matter in terms of, like, a woman with a woman. I think, like, the reason why this chapter was written is because it's talking about, again, like, the type of love we're seeking from other people. Are we with someone? Are we loving them to find a match, the person that complements you? Or is it really to not feel alone? And I think that's something that a lot of people have to facilitate every day. Sometimes you are with someone and you may have love for them, but you don't love them in the way that maybe it sweeps you off your feet, or like it nurtures you, it grows you. Like, maybe it's a functional relationship, but it's not a passionate one, or maybe it's a passionate one and it's not functional. It's like one or the other. And I think it says a lot about, what love looks like, how it could exist outside of a traditional marriage model.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah. And I think again, like, going back to what I said in the beginning about how Justin Torres is writing this from a children's perspective. And of course, like, as a child, you may never be exposed to this. And to see it in this context, you're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, this is so strange to me. Of course, it would impact you as a child, because you're like, this is challenging everything that I knew, about my mom and my dad, about, mom, paps. Like, it's very different, and I don't know if what I've witnessed my whole life is love, or is what I'm witnessing right now, where it's organic, it's authentic, it's like full of feeling. Like, is that what it is? Well, listeners and Janine, because I don't actually know how well Janine knows this, but just for context, I do identify as part of the LGBTQ spectrum.
Uh-huh.
I identify as bi, if that wasn't obvious.
Uh-huh. Oh, I do.
from my constant tweets about how people can out me in the middle of the street because I was wearing a tank top and Bermuda shorts, and I have arm tattoos. So if that doesn't scream bi to you, then maybe we should talk. Anyway, so in regards to that whole incident, I do agree that radical, inappropriate feminism is just as bad as radical, inappropriate, radical, inappropriate, like misogynism. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Equally as bad as one another. It's not one is better than the other. Like, you can't pick the lesser of two evils because they're both bad. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a man that's slamming females, for just the fact that they're female, that's terrible. If you're a female slamming men for being men, that's also terrible. Like, you can joke around and be like, oh yeah, like men are trash because like maybe like you did have like an experience where like a man was being stupid, because to be honest, don't we all have those moments?
Oh my gosh, Roxanne, before you go on, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just remind me, I can't say this on the podcast yet, but the code name will be Reese's Pieces. I have an instance for you that men are trash. Maybe we'll talk about it in my OTT, but I have to let this play out for a month, okay? But Reese's Pieces.
Okay.
The next month.
Okay, Reese's Pieces.
Okay.
I will try to remember that.
So, I'm so sorry. You were saying that some people have those instances, like, don't we all?
Yes, but yes. So, that in itself, like, just, I think there was a movie, was it Neighbors 2, where, like, they were housed next to a makeshift sorority. It wasn't, like, a real sorority, but they, like, became a sorority of, like, rebel girls, and, like, they started throwing, like, there was a scene, they started throwing, like, bloody tampons and stuff at the men, and it was just, like, weird, and, like, I would never in my life, no matter how offended I was by a man, he has said to me, I would never take a tampon or a pad and like smear my blood everywhere, throw it there. It's just like, that doesn't make you look, doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you better than that person, because you're just stooping down to this level of like nasty, gross behavior.
I know. Yeah, it's not justifying anything.
And it's like when someone already sees you as inferior, when you start to act out, that just makes it worse, because you're not building a case for yourself. And I think, there are things in terms of this sphere that are very touchy, because I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, because I identify as bi and I always have, like, I'm the expert on all things gay. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm really not.
I try to preface that with, like, every single podcast, I'm like, I know I'm a little dumb. Like, please correct me if I'm wrong. So I think that my listeners will understand if we make, like, small. So
yeah. But I think the key to understanding these really difficult social topics are to also understand that you don't know everything, right? Yeah. Like you always want to have your opinion and have your argument, but then you always want to be open to other people's. Mm-hmm. And I think the part that makes radical feminism, okay, so I don't want to say radical feminism either, because sometimes like there is radical feminism that means like, oh, you're just proactive in women's rights.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what I mean in this context is just like what we were describing, where it's like lewd behavior and like hurting other people, like actually harming other people, and just, that kind of fight doesn't really solve anything or help you. I think the problem with that is that a lot of people use it to justify. Like they use the behavior to justify the behavior, if that makes sense. they kind of go eye for eye, where like if a man spits in your direction, now you think you can double back and spit in his direction. And I think that's not really a way to like create a productive dialogue on the things that women actually need. Like, we need free menstrual products because we can't control that part of our bodies. Like, that's something that we should be provided for. We shouldn't have to pay for those things, you know, because that's something that's a natural process. When like guys get free condoms, you know what I mean? Like, guys get free condoms, but we can't get free hygienic products for the very process that allows for procreation. Like, how does that make any sense?
Yeah, we make your babies.
So
grow them in our tummies.
It's stuff like that. Stuff like that actually creates change within, you know, poor societal structure that you should be speaking up about, but not necessarily like vocalizing, you know, this constant narrative echo of men are trash. This is why I hate men. This is that, because that's only just going to create an ongoing back and forth of who hates who, and it doesn't solve anything.
Yeah.
There is so much I can unpack with that.
You're gonna choose my next book then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would definitely love a repeat if the listeners aren't sick of me by now. Lastly, to answer this question, there is a song recently that Cardi B was on. Cardi B, Baby Rexa. I don't know how to say her name.
BB Rexa.
Yeah. And I think it's just... Oh, and Charlie XCX. It's called Girls. And Kehlani actually spoke out against this song because as someone who identifies, you know, as queer, she was upset because she was like, I just made a song, Cardi, and, you know, I know she didn't really mean it like this, but the context of this song, Girls, by Rita Ora, that's who it's by. It's Rita Ora.
Okay.
She says, like, you know, that's not how it works. That's basically what she said. She was like, that's not how it works, you know? You can't just say, and I quote, sometimes I just want to kiss girls. Red wine, sometimes I just want to kiss girls. Like, okay, maybe sometimes, like, you are curious about kissing another girl because you're drunk, or, like, you're just curious, or you want to have fun. But at the end of the day, this could be very damaging to people who actually know that they are, you know, they are lesbian, they are gay, they are bi, you know, they are trans. Like, they already have enough of a difficult time getting people to understand who they are, not what they are. Because I think that's also a distinction to make, is that people want to understand what these people are when they should just understand who they are. Like, that they're just people. This is their preference. This is nothing that, like, really warrants your opinion on their choice, you know? But so yeah, it's like to have songs like that again, like you were saying, fetishize and sexualize, you know,
with, like,
fantasize,
downplaying just who they are, and
it also downplays their struggle to be noticed and to be known as regular people. So I hope I explained that well.
Yeah, that kind of went from our men trash to is our human race just supposed to be in the garbage.
our human trash, our human dumpster fire.
And the answer is yes. It's just awesome.
So in the next segment, just another segue due to auditory difficulties again. So it began by me talking to her about why I was excited at first for her to be a guest on my podcast for this book. And it was as simple as the setting, just because she was from Brooklyn and I figured she'd be familiar with any of the landmarks and stuff that they mentioned. And up to this point in the book, they haven't really mentioned any landmarks. So we were giggling a little bit about that. But as time went on and I kept reading the book and, you know, just events started occurring, and then 2 events happened as I was reading, and during that time period that kind of made me more, it made me feel like the podcast was going to have more depth to it. So the first precipitating event was the passing of Mac Miller. So when Mac Miller passed, it led to the next event, which was Roxanne eventually writing an article or a piece called On Mac Miller and Toxic Romance. And Roxanne and I were we kind of took it as a sign, from the heavens above, that this was just our opportunity, and it was the perfect time for us to talk about the parallelisms of, her article up against Ma's troubles with her abusive and manipulative relationship. And I put another disclaimer in there, just talking about how this is an extremely touchy subject, and Roxanne was completely okay with letting her guard down and showing this vulnerable side to her. Because after she posted, we both came to the conclusion that it's just extremely important for not only women, but just men and women of all generations to have this conversation and, open up the floor to anybody who's ever gone through that or is going through that, so that nobody feels that they're alone. So the next few portions of this podcast are going to be the prior mentioned stories about her experience of being in an abusive relationship, how it came about, and how she triumphed and persevered and was able to overcome the experience and get to the place that she is now.
Just to give slight background, and honestly a little bit for me too. So I want to know how you found out, what were your first signs that something was wrong? Did you see things that would lead up to the things that you experienced? Of course you met, fell in love, and what were your did you have any warning signs that things would go the way that they did?
I would say, personality-wise, I don't really see anything off the bat other than he grew up in a very similar situation to how I grew up, very low income, minority neighborhoods, and just not a very straight and narrow path. And we connected over that. We connected that we understood certain experiences that a lot of people did not. So I never took those signs necessarily, because I was oh, I get it. I get that. Sometimes when you grow up this way, this is how things are. What was a red flag was probably around 6 months into our relationship or so. It was summer, the first summer of our relationship. So I think that was 6 months. We were somewhere in my the downtown area near my work, and I don't even remember how we got to this point, but it resulted in this altercation where it just got really out of hand, and I was I really just want to go home. I don't want to have this conversation. I'm very tired tonight. I don't want to do this. And so I was I'm going to go home. And he basically he kept physically blocking me from leaving. And I was in an outside area. I was by the trains. I was in public. There were people passing us by. And he would just physically walk right in front of me and like not let me get anywhere I needed to go. And then I would like try to walk the other way, and then he like would grab my arm, and like he had never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when he grabbed my arm, he like pulled really hard, like very aggressively hurt. And he was just like, he just said something like, "You're being such a bitch right now." Like, and like, he had never spoken to me. And I was just like really, really in shock. Because like all of it was just happening really fast and at once. And I was like, oh no, like, I was like, no, like we cannot do this. Like, this is not okay. I was like, first of all, you should never do this, whether it's public or private. And second of all, the fact that you're okay with doing this in public is like very not good.
Yeah.
And people were like watching us. They were just passing us by, and like it's a scene. And I was like, I need to go home. Like, and I'm trying to like free myself of his grasp. And he started like crying and like screaming at me and saying like, if you leave me, like understand that you might not see me again. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I just want to go home. Like, I'm not trying to like make this any worse than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like screaming and crying, and then he starts threatening to like hurt himself. And he's like, all right, if you don't love me, then fuck it, I don't deserve to live.
Oh.
And I'm sorry, I just cursed. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Oh, you're fine.
But yeah, and just saying like a lot of that kind of stuff. And I was just like, I was also crying because I was like really terrified, because he started like running into the street, like head on into traffic.
Oh my Lord.
And I'm just like, I'm like panicking because I have really bad anxiety, like actual anxiety, not the kind where I'm like, oh my God, my test is tomorrow. I have anxiety. Like I have like actual anxiety where it's like crippling and I can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to do. Like I called his best friend, well, one of his best friends, who's a girl. And I was like, I need you to come pick him home, because like they live somewhat close to each other, like maybe like 15 minutes away. And I was like, please, 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 I need your help. I can't get him to go home, and I don't want to leave him in this situation, but I can't go home with him. Like I don't feel safe. Like we were like literally trying to get him into the car, and he was fighting us and like saying he doesn't want to live anymore, and that he hates himself and he hates like life. And it was like a really big ordeal. And then I went home, and then she called me like on the way home, and she goes, he's trying to jump out of the car. And you know, like, you know, obviously in retrospect, these are things that like once someone hears it, they'd be like, nah, I'm out. Like I'm out. Like I can't do this. For me, I was like, I wanted to say that. I really wanted to be like, all right, I can't. Like I physically am not in the right place to do this, you know? But I don't know. It was just, I was compelled to check on him, you know?
Yeah.
And the more I checked on him, the more he would basically be like, oh, I'm going to do everything I need to get better. Like, I promise, like, baby, like, this is not for me. This is for us. Like, I'm going to do what I need to do to, like, be a better person and to get better and get help and not be sick anymore. And I'm just like, all right, like, and every time. And I'm telling you, like, this relationship was 2 years long.
Yes.
So between these clips, I kind of digressed and went on a somewhat of a tangent, but I was just explaining to Roxanne that there was a time in the past couple of years. So, you know, Roxanne visited me and only me. She only came to see me. Well, she came back to Jacksonville to see her friends and family and everything. And I noticed a significant difference with her demeanor and kind of how she was acting versus the time I saw her a few months prior to that. So, just to go into just a little bit more detail on that, so the first time that I saw her when she was in a relationship with her ex-partner, at that point in time, she would call and talk to me about his, some of his anxiety attacks and depressive episodes. And at that point, it was like she said, they were working on getting help, and she was very hopeful about it. Fast forward to, I think almost a year was the next time that I saw her, and the way that I described it in the deleted clip was, it was a very exhausted, kind of exasperated Roxanne. So in the toxic romance piece, she writes about how her ex-partner would never be satisfied when it came to her phone. So if she didn't answer her phone, he would be outraged, call at least 5 or 6 times. If she did answer her phone, her ex-partner was never happy with the answer. As in, she would tell him he was fully aware that she was with all women, or it was with, people that she claimed to be brother figures, or regardless of the sex or who she was with, he had to be on the phone with her at all times. And it really burdened her, and it was really taking a physical, I could see that it was taking a physical toll on her. So I asked Roxanne to kind of elaborate on the mindset that she had in terms of what was her reasoning to stay, regardless of the treatment that she received or the signs that she never acted on. And I posed the question if maybe it was the thought that she could change him in any way.
Well, I don't feel like I could change him necessarily. I just felt that maybe the love that I gave him could. I thought that
Lord.
if
I'm quoting that.
Hello, yes, I am a writer. I thought if I poured myself into him and continued to give and give and give and be patient, that someday he'd realize, hey, this person isn't giving up. So why is that? What do I have in me this person sees that I'm not seeing? Work to see what they see, because that's something that I've always been challenged to do by the people around me. Is there's a lot of things I really don't like about myself, because a lot of things that I'm still facilitating. There's a lot of trauma that I'm still trying to work through that stems from just life. And I was always encouraged by the people around me to love for the act of loving, love because it's when you have nothing else, you can still give that. When there's nothing else to give, you can still give that.
Yes.
And that's why I stayed, is because I was like, you know what, I can't change his behaviors. He's going to have to be the person to choose to change his behaviors. But if I continue to support him, then maybe he'll see, that I see something, the potential to be better, the potential to get better. Because I feel like anybody, as much as they struggle, as much as they have really bad qualities about them, there is room for growth.
Yes, always.
And it's really just your choice whether or not you want to be a bad person, you know? So that was my mentality. I mean, there were other factors that kept me with him. I was going through stuff with my family, and I wanted to, not be at home, so I stayed with him a lot. And then when I started staying with him more frequently, it became Stockholm syndrome, where the more, at first it was like he let me stay with him because like, oh, we're dating and we've been in this relationship for a long time, so it's natural. But then it started becoming like I had to report to him like, oh, I'm going out tonight with my friends, I'll be home later. And like, we weren't married.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't supposed to be like that, but it was. And it's like, the more I was there, the less I felt like I was able to go anywhere else.
So at this point in our conversation, I was talking to Roxanne about the last chapter that we read. And it was the scene where Ma was getting the kids into the car and gathering them up and pretty much almost making that move to finally leave Paps. And I was just talking to her about how much it broke my heart at the part where she was pretty much asking her kids, like, oh guys, what should I do? What do you think I should do next? Where do you guys want to go? At first in an excited manner, and then it was kind of, it took on a more serious tone. Like, she clearly didn't think it through and was really contemplating, like, oh my god, like seriously asking her kids, what do I do next? Do we just leave? Do you guys want to do this for real? And it really just, it was just a heartbreaking part just to imagine. And eventually at that point she ends up driving back with the truck and taking herself and the children back to the house, because I'm guessing it was familiarity's sake. We were talking about how regardless of knowing that you're going to get hurt, that it's probably the wrong decision. The mechanism that your mind like tells you, it's just because it's a safe place and it's a place of comfort, quote unquote comfort. It's harder to traipse onto new grounds and try something new when it's unfamiliar, and it kind of gets ingrained in your mind that even if something isn't destructive, like quality or habit or environment, if it's if it's familiar to you, you're going to keep going back to it until you really make that break, or you have motivation to like sever it for good. So after that discussion, I kind of asked Roxanne about what gave her the strength to finally leave, put her foot down and say no, and kind of push her over the edge to make that decision to step out of that relationship, regardless of loving him the way that she did.
I think so. It was during the holidays last winter. Where, things leading up to that point were already pretty bad. Like, we had broken up in New York before I came to Jacksonville, and then we were in a weird space where we were still living together kind of, and seeing each other, but we were coasting off of this idea of not having a definite label, but then we were still in a relationship. It was very, I don't even know what it was called, but, and it is it reflects that chapter where she leaves, and then she realizes she has no idea what lies ahead of her, so she just turns back and goes back to what's familiar, even though it's not even a good choice. And that's kind of how I got the strength to leave. Was just, I remember being at home during that time, and every single day that I was there, he would call at least 5, 6, 7 times a day, probably more than that actually. And if I did pick up, he'd be like, "Who are you with?" And want to talk for an hour, and I'm like, with other people, and then I'm just sitting on the phone. Like, I don't see these people more than like once or twice a year, and I'm going to be on the phone the whole time that I'm with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was like, I need you to understand, like, this is my time to be with these people. You see me all the time. I need you to understand, like, these people are also very important to me. Like, my family, my friends, my family friends, you know, and it's hard for me to be here but not be present because I'm always worrying about you.
Mm-hmm.
And he just like he wasn't understanding towards that. He just saw how I was leaving him alone. He didn't have anyone to celebrate the holidays with and all this stuff. And I was just kind of like, you can't like depend on me for this right now. I'm literally an entire state away. And I think being home in Jacksonville actually gave me the strength because I was surrounded by so many people that were like watching me like devote so much time to this situation, to like repairing a situation that I wasn't supposed to be repairing, to be honest. And, you know, you guys just like filled me up with like so much like love and encouragement. And like, whether you knew it or not, it was just like the fact that you guys were excited to see me and like be around me. And, you know, that's something that I didn't really feel very often because I wasn't really allowed to see anybody when I was home in New York. Like, you know, he always had to be present when I was with my friends because he didn't really trust that I would be, I don't know, a decent human being. But, you know, he wasn't being the supportive partner I needed him to be during that time because he was making it all about himself. And coming to terms with that was like, it was kind of like a very, it was something I already knew, but it felt like a revelation because it was like, if a person really truly loves you, they wouldn't make you feel ashamed to be around other people that love you, you know, like, and the myself in the environment that I was used to and being around genuine non-romantic love to remember like that a person who values you for all that you are, whether it's romantic or platonic, they would never make you feel guilty for prioritizing like your mental, physical, and emotional being. Like they would never, you know, put their needs in front of yours and like play this comparison game. And then like when you realize like you're playing this comparison game, you also have to realize like there's no way to really win it. So because it's always going to be back and forth. So the strength really came from just a really good support system and my, I guess, absolution with myself. Like I had to learn how to forgive myself for if anything happened to, you know, between like to him when I broke up with him, I couldn't feel that it was my fault. I was sticking to what I really knew to be true. Like I knew the love I received from my friends and family in Jacksonville was real love. I had to accept that I loved myself enough to want to be happy and to not want to be in a relationship where it was literally structured so that I could never be happy. And then I had to accept that love would come again. And this is like so sappy. Like I'm really like people that know me in real life, you know, they would probably be really weirded out to hear this podcast because I'm very petty, sarcastic, and you know, when I was in high school, Janine's family called me Lil Fusion because
I think I wrote Lil Fusion in the bio.
Because I just was so like, I don't even know. I talked a lot of trash.
Little thing. I wonder, guys. She's like 4'0", but she packs a punch. 4 feet nothing. But she will literally like rollerblade over your life. I was thinking of like a bowling ball, but a rolling rollerblade is what came out. I can agree with that statement that you wouldn't. But that's kind of the same with me too, and I think that's kind of why we're such close friends, because we, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would rather internalize like anything that isn't positive energy because of what we're trying to put out, not just for us, but for other people. You know what I mean? So when these things do come up, it's like, oh, you're feeling that way? Since when? You never act that way. Blah, 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 this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. It's like, you don't want to burden people with the things that burden you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that just creates this adverse effect where, like, eventually you just start, like, exploding at random times. It may not be an explosion like you just lash out at someone. Sometimes it's an explosion where, like, you just spontaneously start crying while at your desk, you know? And that does happen to me sometimes when I'm working through these things, you know? But it's also something that it shows like something that you need to work through.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not only like the fact that you have to work through it, it's that you need to. And repeated behaviors only happen because you haven't made a change, right? So
yeah. And you know,
yeah, go ahead.
No, keep going. Here, you finish, because I have something to say, like, that encompasses all.
Well, I don't want people to listen to this and think like, oh, this is just another, you know, story where like a victim speaks out and it's all about that victim being a victim.
Mm-hmm.
What I want people to understand is, if you have a story that is similar to mine or it resonates with you in any way, understand that you can't just settle for this narrative where someone hurt you and you were hurt. You also have to do your part in doing what it takes to be a good person and maybe not hurting other people in ways that you don't realize you are. You know, I would be wrong to say that there were times in the relationship where I wasn't acting out and I wasn't, you know, hurting him, because maybe I did. Maybe, you know, I do have anger problems that I didn't realize I had until this relationship brought it out of me, where I was like constantly, you know, I was constantly upset and it would grow into this big thing and my temper was just terrible. And it made me realize like, hey, like, you know, this person hurts me and this is how I defend myself. But maybe the way I defend myself is also very harmful. So it's something that I need to work on. So, you know, I just want to say that if you're in this type of relationship or you have experience with this type of relationship, you know, understand that it takes effort on both sides. You can't just be okay with being a victim. You have to be like the protagonist of your own story, essentially. I don't want to like be cliche, but it's also very true. Like, it's very true. So yeah.
We love cliches over here. You're at home, my friend. But you know, like, what you kind of said, like, triggered me. Triggered is one of my favorite words in a positive connotation. But, like, in terms of, like, surrounding yourself with the people you love. And, you know, when you were going through both stages and you were telling me about it, you know, when you, like, I think people used to come to me a lot, like, for advice. But there are things that, like, stuck with me in your article. And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because I know, and, like, my heart is filled with, like, happiness for you, because I know that the relationship you're in now, you know, you came out of such a dark place. And me, like, telling you to do something, or anybody in any case telling you how to like fix this, like it wouldn't have worked, because to quote you from your article, these were my favorite ones, and it kind of like leads into like the conclusion of like you moving past that part of your life. So you were saying how like in terms of people projecting like what happened with Mac and Ariana's relationship, and how the blame game is so easy to do, and how people were like looking at it as if they were part of it. You just said, what's it called? You can't force people to understand what they don't. So that was one of my favorites. And then you said, like, who are you to have a say in another's private relationship? So you and your ex-partner, like, there was nothing that I could have said or anybody could have said, I feel like, that would have, like, pushed you or would have made you to make that decision to, like, better yourself. Because as you said, it was nothing that we, like, directly did, just our presence being there. And that makes me happy that we could have done that for you. You know what I mean? In retrospect. Like, I would have never known that because of the way that you are, because you don't want to put that burden, like, I wouldn't have known what to say. And I don't think we could have, like, verbally said anything that would have got you to that point. It was just a matter of, like, letting it play out and you coming to that realization. Like, to be able to have had a part in that makes me really happy. I'm shaking.
Oh, you gonna make me cry.
And like, just as the conclusion of like the article, it's like, I think what's important for people to know when they hear the episode too, it's like what you said at the end. And it kind of represents what I hope will happen at the end of this We the Animals, but quote unquote, Roxanne, you will be okay if you have to leave. And I think, did you put that in bold? You might have put that in bold. Or like what you just emphasized with, you have to put your mental, emotional, and physical health first before you can help and have a relationship with somebody else. Did you underline you? Because I feel like that like struck home with me. Like, you will be okay. Like, you'll freaking get there, because you're a living testament to it. And that article is just like, I want to share it everywhere. And I've been waiting just because actually to like publish this episode so I can like attach it to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, that makes me happy to hear. It's like very encouraging because, you know, this is something I guess I talk about to only people that are close to me, but for me to just kind of, you know, take the plunge and like end something out and vocalize it in a public space is like, it was submitted with a lot of fear of rejection and criticism, but all I've received since then is just encouragement, not even just in regards to this issue, but also just people saying, hey, you know, like, your writing is really great and you're very talented and like you should continue to do this. Like, and I think for a long time, like, I've been very caught up with like working to work, but not create, you know, something tangible for myself. So that's something that, you know, I don't take it lightly when people like this or share it. It seems like such a common thing in the age of social media and the digital age, but, you know, anybody could like and share and get a million views and stuff. But to me, every single one of the people that have done that, I sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you're reading it, you probably see like green highlights. That's not me. It's actually strangers. These are all like highlights from...
No way.
Yeah. If you see green highlights, those are from people just who come across the story online and they highlight pieces that they like.
No way.
I don't know any of these people. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's that connect. It's more than
it's cool to see what lines resonate with different people.
Well, Roxanne, my end question, but yes, I don't need transitions with you, but also you kind of ruined it because my ending question was, what do you think is going to happen next? Lord.
Wow.
But, everyone. But that's what I love. I can't believe, and I really hope with enough, annoyances and hashtags but he doesn't have a Twitter. Justin Torres doesn't have a Twitter. I would love for him to, hear how this book correlates with, a real experience and how it really changed. Or how significant it is. Because regardless, I remember in the last episode I mentioned that the setting, just because it was in, the 1980s, I don't feel like this happened over 20 years ago. I feel like this transcends time and the way that we were able to tie in our experiences now versus back then. I was expecting a lot of old-timey references that I wouldn't understand, but the fact that we could position it up against what happened now with your toxic romance article and everything, it makes me really happy.
I think I went into this thinking it was going to be really dated.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And that I'd have to approach it with different language, but yeah, it definitely transcends time. To answer your question, because we're trying to meet a time crunch here that is not really a time crunch, to be honest. Well, because I already read the end, I know what happens. But if I were to go back and pretend that I did not, I would say I would expect the story to provide more of a resolution for their family unit, since a lot of the stories are about the family. Mm-hmm. I expect that. And I also expect a little bit more explanation as to who the narrator is, because I feel like he's giving all these stories from his point of view, but he's talking about other people, and there's very few moments where he talks about himself. So that's something that I would look forward to.
Yes. I want to know that too. I also want to know, is someone going to die?
Oh, yeah. I thought the mom...
Dying now?
I think the mom will die. I keep talking in past tense. I think the mom will die.
What does that mean? I'm scared.
I can't tell you.
Gosh darn Justin Torres, making her not able to put down the book. We couldn't ask for a better outcome. It's just a brilliant and ferocious way of writing that's just kept her from sleep at night. I said brilliant and ferocious, quoted by Michael Cunningham on the front of this book. So I can't take any credit for that description.
Alright, you buggers, this is going to be the last cutscene for me, but I pretty much just asked Roxanne, what's one thing, one message, one shot, one chance that she wants to leave my listeners with?
My advice to listeners, my parting words, my sweet kiss goodbye, or sweet kiss hello, however you want to see it. Do what you can to always remind yourself of what love looks like and who represents that in your life, whether it's a romantic partner, a platonic partner, a partner who's not really a partner, the cashier that smiles at you every time you check out at Walmart, the guy who knows how to make your coffee every morning, just little little moments like that where humans are connected to one another without needing to necessarily make it into this whole concrete thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just the genuine connection of humans connecting to one another. Just remind yourself of those moments and remind yourself that those do contribute to a life well lived.
Mic drop.
It is very hard for me to not let my actual accent come out when I talk.
I think they're
trying to be all
hear that. They're gonna have to hear that in the OTT.
In the OTT, it's gonna come out.
I think so.
Because I can only carry on like this for so long, where I'm just like all Paxtoned out.
Guys, are we gonna
putting
my for spam?
Oh God, am I? It's already like it's 12:30.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that episode. So much love, so many big fat virtual hugs from Florida, New York to my closest, dearest friend Roxanne. Guys, everything, her contact, her Twitter, website, and the wonderful article that she wrote is going to be pinned and posted on my Twitter. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter. It's at JanineBTL. Also, favorite this podcast on Anchor and share it with your friends. I think that would be amazing. Again, your daily reminder to keep an eye out for October 15th. There is some fun stuff coming. So, I just wanted to say I love you all, and never forget, don't deny yourself a handful of buttery, salty popcorn every now and then. I love you. Can't wait to listen to you. Can't wait to have you guys in the next episode. Bye.